City Hall, and all the courts, they all shook. When we stopped the law, they had to take it off the books. It was faith, it was love, it was a victory over racism, and I call it flavor. It all started, I remember the first night we met. I'll never ever forget.
For King Jr. holiday weekend, we have a story of love that flourished against all odds. Shirley explains how an interracial Baltimore couple ended up on the front line of the civil rights movement.
And darling,
Don and Shirley Billy married 50 years. Despite prejudice, their love changed Maryland law.
I was with a group called the Honey Boys. We sing
doo-wop.
Doo-wop.
Music brought them together.
Yeah, it was kind of exciting, you know, they were performing at the club.
She was the prettiest girl there.
They fell in love in an era when separate but equal was the rule.
I hadn't realized I had done something wrong. But, you know, by being with a black man.
Discord came to their young love.
It didn't get frightening to me until when I found out that we had prejudiced black people as well as white.
Just out of high school, forced into their own civil rights fight, Shirley gave birth to John's baby, and the law came calling, taking the baby away.
I was actually arrested for it.
The police brought Shirley here to what was known as the Pine Street Jail for Women. They charged her under a 242-year-old law that prohibited you from having a child with a Negro. She spent the night here before her mom bailed her out.
I had no say.
But John brought news of his finalized divorce. Despite threats, John and Shirley got married and brought their son back.
I love him to death.
Their story featured in magazines. They continued to make sweet music, teaching their children to stand firm for love and justice.
I couldn't think of nothing better than what we had.
Shirley, John, and their lawyer eventually got the law that landed her in jail overturned as unconstitutional. Back to you.
Sharon, thank you. Shirley and John have 3 grown children and 7 grandchildren. I bet they're just as good grandparents
That is wonderful.
as they are parents. They went through a lot.
Welcome back, everyone. February is the month we all celebrate Black history and also the month we celebrate love. Tonight, we're combining them with a love story that helped change history, or at least change the laws in the state of Maryland. Take a look. It was a warm September night in 1954. John Billy and his group, the Honey Boys, were performing at a private teenage social club in East Baltimore.
This kid came over to me and brought me a note, and I looked at it and said, I'd like to dance with you. And I asked him who sent it, you know, and he pointed over to these 2 girls over here in the corner in a black dress, you know. I just walked right over there, you know, and the first one I came to, I reached my hand out.
I thought, why is he asking me to dance?
So while I'm dancing with her, I said, I got your note, you know. And then she says, well, I didn't send the note. My girlfriend sent the note.
By that time, it didn't matter. Shirley, who's white, and John, who's black, were instantly attracted. Neither was thinking about the obvious differences that would snap them back to reality hours later on their walk home. Shirley's mom told her to stay away from John, but the couple continued to see each other when they could. Shirley was 20 when she delivered their first child, a baby boy at Johns Hopkins.
I thought this was going to be the happiest day of my life. And the next day, these people came into my room and said, your child was taken from the hospital overnight and taken to St. Elizabeth Orphanage.
Backed by a 241-year-old state law that said it was a crime for a white woman to allow herself to get pregnant by a colored man or mulatto, a crime that could have sent Shirley to prison for up to 5 years.
I said, what? For having a baby? You know, I just couldn't believe it. I thought I was in a nightmare or something. I didn't know how I was going to get out of it.
She didn't get out of it. Weeks later, police showed up and arrested Shirley in the middle of the night.
A grand jury got together and decided that they thought I should go to jail. for this crime. I just can't imagine that. And I thought, nah, it's not going to happen. Nobody goes to jail for having a baby.
But Shirley did.
The first night in jail, I cried all night till I went to sleep.
John was never arrested because the law only targeted white women. Ultimately, that's what Shirley's lawyers used to make their case. On April 22nd, 1957, the judge dismissed the indictment against Shirley and declared the law written in 1715 unconstitutional. Even with the threat of jail time gone, the young couple still faced not being able to raise their son. John Jr. was still in an orphanage.
We would go out there and see him, but after a while, it didn't even seem like we were just visiting some child that, you know what I mean? We didn't have that bonding. You miss the most important months, you know, to hold him and...
Or to see him first walk, never take a first step or nothing like that.
The state told Shirley in order to get her son back, she would have to get a job, find a place to live, and get married. But back then, it was illegal for blacks and whites to get married in the state of Maryland. Shirley's lawyers wanted the couple to take up that fight and challenge Maryland's law prohibiting mixed-race marriages. Weary from their last battle, they declined. But 1 year later, John and Shirley drove to Washington, D.C. and legally got married. A short time later, they also got their son back. But by that time, nearly 2 years had slipped away.
But those real bonding days were gone. That's what hurt the worst.
Despite all they endured, John and Shirley say their faith and love helped them overcome racism, discrimination, and a 241-year-old law.
What kept it going is us. She kept holding me up. I kept holding her up. They're going to stand tall.
And nearly 56 years later, Shirley still remembers dancing with the young man she met inside that private all-white teenage social club in East Baltimore.
I just took him for what he was, you know.
The 1950s, a young couple's love against the law.
It was scary to be arrested, put in jail.
Their baby sent to an orphanage.
The state's decision to enforce an outdated law and how it led to decades of pain.
Coming up next on 11 News.
Well, tonight, an I-Team story you will only see on 11 News. A Baltimore couple whose love was literally against the law when they met and had a child back in the 50s. Well, more than 5 decades later, they want something from the state. 11 News I-Team reporter Barry Sims explains.
Oh, my God.
Shirley Howard Billy returns to the place that held her captive more than 5 decades ago. She was indicted and arrested. Her crime? Getting pregnant by a black man.
Oh, yeah, I cried all night. I was afraid I'd never get out.
Now at age 75, Shirley and her 76-year-old husband, John, visit the former Pine Street Women's Jail, now a historic site. They reflect on how their relationship has endured.
And I never forget this. I always think about it. I know it's been a long time, but it just doesn't go away. It's creepy.
Pictures help tell the story of their 53-year marriage. But back in 1956, hair and clothing styles were a lot different, and so were social attitudes about interracial couples. The indictment from May of that year claims Shirley Ann Howard, who was then and there a white woman, unlawfully suffered and permitted herself to be begotten with child by a Negro or mulatto, to wit, John Moses Billy. The penalty she faced? 18 months to 5 years in prison.
I had to go down to grand jury to verify that I was the father of Shirley Howard baby. And I wasn't about to deny it.
Back then, John was a 21-year-old musician performing with a band known as the Honey Boys. Shirley was 20, and to this day, she still has questions.
How this all came about, and why they pursued it with me and not other people, and and things like that, and I just could never get answers.
Shirley spent one night behind bars before getting bailed out, but that was only part of the ordeal. Social services and child welfare got involved. The Billy's son, Johnny, was taken away from them. He was placed in an orphanage, St. Elizabeth's home for colored infants and children. He spent nearly 2 years there.
So explain what it was like having to continue to go to the orphanage to see your son.
My son was in St. Elizabeth's for quite a while.
What was that like for you?
I mean, I just had every day to think about, it's making me upset, I can't believe it, how to get him home.
Shirley's attorney argued that the origins of the Maryland law that landed her in jail dated back to 1663 and slavery. A later version in 1715 penalized white women who got pregnant by black men. The Billies say the law had never been enforced until Shirley's arrest.
I think at that time they wanted to take Shirley and make an example out of it.
To get her son back, Shirley had to prove to the court she was working, had a place to live, and was married. John says he was drafted into the Army during peacetime, but after basic training, he came back. The couple married in 1958.
And we had to go to D.C. to get married.
Had to go to D.C.
Because it was illegal in Maryland.
A judge dismissed the case against Shirley, something she says she never knew because her attorney told her not to come to court on that day. And the state abolished the law, declaring it unconstitutional in 1957. But the impact of all of this estranged Shirley from her family for more than 20 years.
I always said my mother really missed out because they were really, really good, nice children.
Shirley says her mother didn't get to know the grandchildren, John, Gregory, and Terry, until they were adults. The Billies have suffered quietly. Now, they are only seeking one thing.
My position in finding apology she should have gotten some time from the state of Maryland and from the city of Baltimore.
John wants it for me. It's a thorn in his side. He wants it for me. And if he gets it, that's fine.
John sent this letter to Governor Martin O'Malley back in November.
My wife was arrested and put in jail because she broke the 275-year-old law in Maryland. The law has since been taken off the books, but the damage has already been done. I feel the state of Maryland and the city of Baltimore owes my wife an apology.
The Billies are still waiting for a response, something to prove the state of Maryland regrets the humiliation of the past.
I want closure for you.
For the 11 News I-Team, I'm Barry Sims.
Well, as you heard again, John Billy would also like the city of Baltimore to apologize to his wife, although he has not yet made a formal request.
It was faith, it was love, it was a victory over racism, and I call it flavor. It all started, it was love. And I call it flavor. Yes, we won our fight. Our silver right. All the blessing from above that created this great love. It was created 60 years ago. 58 of those years we've been married. And still married. The book, it has been written. The song, the civil rights love song, the law, it was changed. Great part of history. Should this be a documentary? Should it be a play? Should it be a movie? It's your call. Thank you.